I boarded Scarlet Lady for the Virgin Voyages Comedy Festival. Some things were great, some things were funking awful. Take a look at my full review for more. There were a load of good comedians, a couple of great ones, and that helped me recover from the joke that was Embarkation, and a couple that I wanted to throw overboard too. Here, ladies and gentlemen, we go. As it was a comedy festival, this video will focus on the comedians on board, but I do cover the music, venues and ship's company productions on my main Scarlet Lady review, so go over there and take a look. A minor surprise on night one was that Jack Whitehall, the festival headliner, was the MC in the Manor, a small cabaret bar / nightclub for the first show of the festival. As a human man, he's a likeable guy. When you see him on panel shows or reality TV or silly comedies, he's good. As a host of a comedy night, same. The MC's job on the lineup is to focus the audience, usually to remind people not to be morons shouting out nonsense or talking, tell a joke or two and bring the comedians on stage. He did a decent job and hosting a comedy night is a good fit for him. The acts on board in no particular order: Lloyd Griffiths. Now Lloyd is someone that you might recognise from small TV appearances, or more likely think you recognise, because he looks a bit like Jack Black, which he does know and he does reference. The bulk of his set has remained unchanged since the first time I saw him over 10 years ago. He surprises people with impressive opera singing, does an extended bit impersonating Sticky Tape, and he welcomes people to shout out different cathedrals, and he gives a bit of trivia about it. Now obviously that can't be checked in the moment, but he acts like it's correct so you believe him. And it's not funny in itself, but he drops in this and that and he makes it work. If you've seen my QM2 videos, then you'll know that I slated Kevorkian for peddling out decade-old material. But in Lloyd's defence, at least his stuff is funny. Next up is Matt Stellingwerf. Now Matt is a New Zealand comedian who's been on the UK comedy circuit since, 2017? I never take other people's opinions as fact, but for some reason, when another comedian told me that Matt was okay to be the middle of a show if the opener and closer were strong, I sort of accepted it and I never bothered to see him perform, and that was a mistake. He's really natural on stage and effortlessly moves through the gears. I don't know for sure, but I expect that he MCs a lot, as he does a lot of talking to the audience and riffing on whatever they give him. A sleeper hit. Tom Lucy. Now, I don't want to seem dismissive, and he is only a baby, so he's doing really well. And Tom was perfectly pleasant to watch, and I wasn't bored, but he's not really my taste. Very similar sound of his voice probably doesn't help, but even without that, I would be left with the feeling that he's a Michael McIntyre tribute act. And for my money, one McIntyre is more than enough. So, moving on, we've got Emmanuel Sonubi. You may well know Emmanuel from semi-recent appearances on Live at the Apollo and QI. But if not, don't worry, he will remind you. Some performers have obstacles to overcome because of their physical appearance. Unusually attractive men or women is an easy example. People just don't find the same material delivered in the same way nearly as funny when it's a Hemsworth or a Portman delivering it. In Emmanuel's case, it's because he's a gigantic 9-foot tall muscular man. And that instantly makes him 30 to 40% less funny than a normal human being. Emmanuel was rocking. Really strong stuff, great on stage, and one of few comedians on the ship who had enough in the chamber to smash every show without recycling the same material. It's a shame that they didn't do a Q&A, because he always dresses the same on stage, and I've always wanted to know where a 9-foot tall dude finds t-shirts that are too long for him. Okay, the first little dip, Griffin Jones. Now this was a bizarre inclusion. The type of act that you expect to see on a cruise ship, sure, but not on Virgin Voyages, which sells itself as sexy and edgy, and certainly not on a comedy festival cruise with mainly proper comedy circuit acts. Now, you get comedians. They gig at places like the Glee Club, the Stand, Hot Water. Then you get cruise ship comedians. These are the acts that, when they're not gigging on board, can be found in Warner hotels or social clubs and function rooms. There are exceptions. The odd comedian can be spotted on cruise ships now and then. But for every Tony Vino, you'll find 10 Manuel Martinez or Kevorkians. Anyway, Virgin is a line that consistently books the real thing, even on regular cruises. So what the funk these guys were doing on a Virgin Voyages comedy festival, I cannot even imagine. Their act is fine, middle of the road, family friendly stuff from times gone by, with the occasional funk or bugger slipped in to make it edgy. I reckon someone will get the hairdryer treatment over this booking. Another strange choice was the Improv guys. Now, this was the only show that I wasn't able to get into because I turned up too late to join the enormous casino queue and the venue was full. I am not for a second suggesting that they aren't good, but the big deal that was heavily advertised was that one of the Improv group was Stephen Frost, star of Whose Line Is It Anyway? You know, that TV show that he was part of when it started in 1988, and whose last appearance was in 1994. Between 31 and 37 years ago. Remind me again how Virgin Voyages for the younger crowd, Richard? Anyway, back to the current millennium. Esther Manito is one of the best comedians around and definitely a strong contender for the best onboard Scarlet Lady this year. She's 50% Essex, 50% Arab and 100% funny. She took on hosting duties for some shows. Sometimes she was a support act and she headlined a show in the main theatre as well. She was on live at the Apollo this year or last, so you can find her online or, better still, buy a ticket and go and see her live. Comedy is nowhere near as good on a screen. I reckon one of the stiffest challenges to Esther for Act of the Festival was Zoe Lyons. Now, you might not know Zoe by name, but as soon as you see her face, you will recognise her. You'll have seen her on TV. She's a regular on panel shows. She often joins Frank Skinner on his radio show and podcast, which admittedly doesn't make her face any easier to spot. And she's been a top comedian for, 20 years. It's a while since I've seen her, so I was hearing all her current stuff for the first time. And it rocked. Zoe's stuff was mainly about having a midlife crisis at age 53, menopause and getting old. In keeping with the Virgin Voyages smoke and mirrors about vibing with the young sexy people. In it, Richard. In it. Next up is Justin Moorhouse. He's well known on the stand-up circuit and he's done bits and bobs of TV. His biggest deal was appearing in Phoenix Nights, which I've never really got around to watching. I mean, I know it's very popular, but so is Mrs. Brown's Boys and Cancer, and I didn't really enjoy either of those, so I'm in no rush. Anyway, his stand-up is strong, he's confident on stage, and people really like him. Ian Coppinger is an Irish comedian and one of the Improv guys. He's one of the few on board that I hadn't seen before. He did a spot as support on one of the mixed shows, and his stuff's a bit old-fashioned, but he's loud, likeable, and still very funny. I would definitely like to see him again. Kazeem Jamal is another act that was new to me. He's a cockney geezer and pretty new to the scene. He's been in and around the comedy circuit for about 5 years, and he was good. His stuff was all really original and sharp, and I'd buy a ticket to see him again. And what a lovely, shiny, deep black beard. Drum roll, please. Jack Whitehall. Now, Jack was the name on board, and the whole thing was sold as the Jack Whitehall show. But I booked before he was announced as the headliner, and when the news dropped, I was actually a bit disappointed. I've seen him before, and his stand-up is okay. It's not strong, it's just fine. I really like the guy as just a human man. When you see him on panel shows or stuff with his dad or whatever, he's likeable and enjoyable. But his stand-up is the kind that you'll smile at now and then rather than actually laugh at. I wasn't that bothered about going to see his solo show, but I felt sort of obliged to join the queue. It was fine, what I expected. Perfectly pleasant, but honestly, it's only Griffin and Jones keeping him from the bottom of the league. Last up is John Robertson. He was the one act that was gigging like it was a real comedy festival. I saw him first in the main theatre when he was screaming and shouting and climbing over the audience and falling off the seats, and then again doing his darkroom show in the Manor. The darkroom in particular was exactly like being in a pop-up venue at the Edinburgh Fringe, and he must have a bigger following than I realised, because it was by far the most repeated show of the cruise. It was always full, and at least half of each audience already knew all the catchphrases that they were supposed to chant when the time came. A strong addition to the lineup, and he really brought something different and really enjoyable into the shared experience that shouldn't work but does kind of way. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Virgin Voyages Comedy Festival. Done.